everyone, in this video we are going to construct a box and whisker plot. Let's take this first example right here as we go through the steps that we need to take in order that we can construct the box and whisker plot. The data below shows a daily after-school study time in minutes of high school students. Construct a box and whisker plot. So what are we going to do is we go over the first step. So the first step is to arrange the data into increasing order, and we are going to determine the Q1, median, Q3, and the IQR. So that's the first step. So I'm just going to label this as our S1. So I'm going to arrange them from biggest to smallest here. So this would be the order. Okay, so I've arranged this data into increasing order. Now the next part of this step is to determine the Q1, the median, and Q3. So in order that we can determine the median first, or the Q2, so we go ahead and cover both ends. We cover until we get the middle. So in this case right here, 30 is our median. So I'm just gonna go ahead and so this is our median. So I'm going to label this as median, or this is otherwise our Q2, or the second quartile. So let's determine the Q1. So from the lower half, I'm going to cover each of the both ends. So cover and cover until we can get the middle. This is our Q1. So I'm just going to label this as the Q1, or the first quartile. Now we get the third quartile from the upper half. So cover both ends, cover both ends. So 34 is our third quartile, or this is our Q3. Part of this step is to determine the IQR. Again, the formula for IQR is Q3. So that's going to be Q3 minus Q1. So in this case right here, we have 34 minus 24, which is our Q1. So our IQR is 10. So this will be our value for the IQR. The second step is to determine the outlier. So in order that we can determine the outlier, so that's the second step right here, we are going to use this condition that we have here in order that we can determine the outlier. So this would be part of the second step, step 2 right here. So then we can go ahead and get those that are way too big. So we're going to use this one right here to determine which numbers are way too big in this set of numbers that we have there. So our Q3 is 34. So I'm gonna, anything greater than 34 plus, that's gonna be 1.5 times our IQR is 10. So then that is anything greater than 34 plus 15, because we have 1.5 times 10 is 15. So anything that is greater than 49 is an outlier. So in this case right here, we can consider 50 and 55 as greater than 49. So these two right here are our outliers. I'm going to label that. These are our outliers. So that's because they are both greater than 49. Now let's see what is the those that are considered way too small compared to the rest of the values. So that would be anything less than Q1 is 24, and then that's minus, that's gonna be 1.5 times the IQR is 10. So that is anything less than 24 minus 15, which is anything less than 9. So let's look at the small values here. Anything less than 9 is 5. So then we can go ahead and label this as one of our outlier, because again, it is less than 9. So those two are the outliers. So that's the second step. So if we were to label this as the first step, and this is the second step. Now we move on to the third step. So the third step will be up here. So S3. The third step is to sketch the box and whisker plot already. But before we sketch it, let's determine what are those values that will be needed in order that we can create those two. So the first part is we determine what are the ones that we write in the box. So the ones that we're writing on the box would be these values, the Q1, the Q2, and the Q3. So these are the values that we need. So looking at the ones that we have solved, our Q1 is 24, then our Q2 is 30, and our Q3 is 34. Now, we determine the values that we use to create the whisker plot. So I'm just gonna write here the whisker. So in order that we can determine what are the two whiskers here, we need to determine the maximum and the minimum. That is excluding the outlier. So in here, since 50 and 55 are not included and 5 is not included as well, so we're going to determine what would be the maximum in this set of values. So that would be 34 and the minimum is 20. So I'm gonna put that in here. So the max would be 34 and the minimum is 20. Again, I excluded the outlier. So that's the maximum, that's the minimum. So then from here, we are now ready to sketch the box and whisker plot. So we can create a horizontal line down here. So I'm gonna create a horizontal line here. And then I'm gonna divide this by 5. So I'll just have this by 5 here. So I go by, that's gonna be 5, 10, Okay, so I created a horizontal line. I had it an interval of 5. So then we can go ahead and sketch the box first. So Q1 is at 24, so we can approximate it to be somewhere around here. So I can draw a line right here, a vertical line, and I can label this as 24. And then another line would be on 30. So I'm gonna label this as 30, that's the Q2, so that is 30 right there. And another vertical line is 34, so it's less than 35. So I'll put that somewhere around here, less than 35. So this is 34. So then I can go ahead and create the box. So this is our box. Now let's create the two whiskers on both ends. So the max is 34. It so happened that the max here and the Q3 are a match. So we don't have a whisker on the other side. But on the other side, the minimum is at 20. So I go ahead and draw another vertical line right here. And then connect it. So this is our whisker. So in this case right here, we only have one whisker on the left side since the 34, the max, and the Q3 are a match. So we are going to plot the outlier as well. So 5 is here, so I can label this as 5. And then the 50 is located here on the right side. So I'm just gonna go ahead and label this as 50. And then 55 is up down here. So these 3 dots that we have here are the outliers. So these 3 are the outliers. So this is how we create the box and whisker plot. In this example, we have an odd set of numbers. Now, what's gonna happen if we get another problem with even set of numbers? At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. First step, so I'm just gonna label this side right here as our S1. Step 1 is to arrange them in order from smallest to biggest. So in this problem that we have here, this is showing the number of words first graders can read in a minute. So that's words per minute. So we arrange them from smallest to biggest. So we start with 14, and then I'm just gonna write all the rest of them. Okay, so I ordered them in increasing order. So what are we gonna do is to determine the median, or this is the Q2. So to do that, we're supposed, again, in this problem here, we have an even set of numbers. The first one, there was no problem. It was an odd set of numbers, so we can determine the middle right away. But in this case right here, we can still do the same thing, but we get the average of those two numbers. So cover both ends until we can get the middle. So that would be between 21 and 23. So then I can go ahead and get the average between these two. So I can get the median, or the Q2. So that would be 21 plus 23 divided by 2. So 21 plus 23 is 44 divided by 2. So our Q2 is equal to 22. Now let's move on to the lower half to determine the Q1s. We get the middle in the lower half, so cover both ends. So we have between 17 and 19. So we can go ahead and add these two together. So that would be 17 plus 19 divided by 2. So that is 36 divided by 2. Our Q1 is 18. Now let's find Q3. That would come from the upper half. So cover both ends until we can get the middle. So it's in between these two here. So that would be 24 plus 24 divided by 2. So that's 48 divided by 2 is 24. So our Q3 is 24. Now, part of this step is to determine the IQR. So remember, IQR is, I'm just going to show that up here. So our IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So our Q3 is 24 minus Q1 is 18. So 24 minus 18 is 6. And that is our interquartile range. Now let's move on to the second step. So for the second step, we're supposed to determine the outlier. So we had a rule set in order that we can determine the outlier. Outlier are numbers that are way too small or way too big. In order to determine which ones are way too big, we're going to determine anything that is greater than, that's Q3 is 24. That's gonna be 1.5 times our IQR is 6. So then we multiply that. So that would be anything greater than 24 plus 1.5 times 6 is 9. So then anything greater than 33 is an outlier. So looking at this data that we have here, anything greater than 33, which is 35, this is an outlier. So I'm just gonna write that as outlier. That's 35 because it's greater than 33. Now let's determine what value is way too small. So we're gonna use this second condition right here. So we have anything less than Q1 is 18 minus, that's gonna be 1.5 times IQR is 6. So that is less than 18 minus 9. So anything less than 9 is an outlier. So in this problem that we have here, we have 14 as the lowest. So there's nothing less than 9. So we don't have a value that is way too small. It makes sense because 14 here is way closer to 16 and 17. But 35 is a little off from 29. So these are the values. So these are the outliers. The next step that we are going to do, step 3, is to construct the box and whisker plot. Before we draw the box and whisker plot, we are going to determine what are those values that are needed in order to construct the box first. So let's take the ones that we need from the box. So that would be Q1, Q2, and Q3. So in this problem that we have, our Q1 is 18. And then our Q2 is 22. So we get 22 right here. Q3 is 24. Then we find the ones that we need in order that we can create the whiskers, which will be on the other ends of the box. So let's see what are these values. We need the maximum and we need the minimum, and that is excluding the outlier. So pretty much we need to do, we take the outlier off of the list, and then we take these values. So the highest or the maximum is 29 and the minimum is 14. So I go ahead and write 29 and this is 14. So then we can go ahead and construct the box and whisker plot here. We can go we can create an interval of 5. So I go ahead and write that down here. So I'll take an interval of 5. So that's 5. That's gonna be 10. Okay, now we are going to create the box first. So our box would contain these 3. So Q1 is at 18, so somewhere between 15 and 20. So I will create that vertical line. I label this as 18, and then Q2 is at 22, so that should be close to 20. So I can create another vertical line right there. So I label this as 22. And then a 24, so somewhere around here, it's less than 25. So I can create another vertical line that's 24. So then I can create the box. So this makes up the box right here. Now, we create the whiskers. That's going to be on both ends. So 29 is the max. So that is somewhere around here, less than 30. And then we can connect it with a box. So that is the left side, the whisker on the right side. And then 14, that's gonna be less than 15. So I can go ahead and label this, by the way, it's 29 and this is 14. So then I can go ahead and connect it with a box. So these two are the whiskers and this is the box here. And then we have an outlier, which is 35. So it's gonna be right here. So I label this as 35. Did you get the same answers as this? Good. Perfect. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya.